Okay, student, let's start. So today's topic is diphtheria, and we'll also cover mumps. So they are the small topics. We'll discuss diphtheria, mumps, and if it is time, then we'll discuss also whooping cough. First, diphtheria, infectious disease, mainly affects the children, generally 1 to 5 years, and it is caused by Corynebacterium diphtheria. So it is caused by that agent is Corynebacterium diphtheria and characterized in its typical form by the presence of pseudomembrane. So as seen in picture, so this is the pseudomembrane. If we try to wipe out, then there may be bleeding. So that is the pseudomembrane. In the tonsil, throat, and the generalized toxemia. And that Corynebacterium diphtheria is a bacteria, and it directly doesn't mix in the circulatory system, but it produces the exotoxin. So the agent directly does not mix in blood, but the exotoxin can present in the blood or present in the circulatory system. Then it can cause also or damage the myocardium also and produce the toxemia. And the case fatality rate is 5 to 10%. So it ranges from 5 to 10%. And there are three major clinical types. That is the anterior nasal, facial. So this is the part pharynx and larynx, pharynx and tonsil. Then laryngeal. So mainly three major clinical types. That is the anterior nasal, facial, the part of pharynx and tonsil, then laryngeal. Okay, Clostridium, so Corynebacterium diphtheria elaborate powerful exotoxin, which is responsible for so first formation of grace or yellowish membrane, that is called pseudomembrane. So that exotoxin forms grace or yellowish membrane as shown in picture. So it produces pseudomembrane. Then marked congestion, edema or local tissue destruction. Mainly that bacteria doesn't move into other place, but when it is sticks, then the part of that area is congested, then that produces edema or local tissue destruction. Then enlargement of regional lymph node, especially mandibular, submandibular lymph node affected. That is enlargement of regional lymph node. Then sign and symptom of toxemia, because it directly doesn't mix in the blood, but the exotoxin produced by Corynebacterium diphtheria can be mixed and can cause toxemia. So this is the Corynebacterium diphtheria elaborate powerful oxytocin, which is responsible for this area. Enlargement of the regional lymph node, sign and symptoms of toxemia. Okay, epidemiology, first occurrence. So it occurred worldwide, but it is controlled in developed country due to immunization. If the immunization coverage is good, around 98%, 99% or above 95%, then it is largely controlled, especially in developed country. But the trend has been decline in developing country is a result of national immunization program. If the coverage is high, the incidence and prevalence of the disease is low. If the immunization coverage is low, then the incidence of disease is also high. But the trend has been declining in developing country after launching diphtheria in pentavalent vaccine. We will discuss what is pentavalent vaccine in the immunization section. Then epidemiological trend agent, that is Corynebacterium diphtheria, that is the gram positive, non-capsulated. So Corynebacterium diphtheria is a agent. which is gram positive. And there are four types. Antigenically, there are three, again four biotypes. Some book follow the three. Acid Bifenthrin, including Bifenthrin, there are four major types, that is gravis, intermedius, mitis, and Bifenthrin, which is associated severe, moderately severe, mild clinical manifestation. So gravis is more virulent, thereafter intermediate, then mitis, then Bifenthrin. So these are the mild. Mitis, Bifenthrin are mild, then gravis, virulent, and less virulent, intermediate, then mitis, then Bifenthrin. So these are the agent factor. Corynebacterium diphtheria is the agent. It produces the exotoxin, and that can cause a pseudomembrane, which is 1 to 3 mm of thick. If you try to whip out, or if you try to bring out, then that may be bleeding, that may bleed. After agent, host, man is the only host. Man is the only host, and there is carrier stage also. We'll discuss in case in carrier. And it mainly affects the 1 to 5 years, because less than 1 year, if we select other age group, that is less than 6 months, so less than 6 months are immune because of maternal antibody due to breastfeeding. So there is almost no cases among less than 6 months because of maternal antibody. And it can be occur beyond the 5 years, but very less. But mainly it affects the preschool children, that is 1 to 5 years, and less than 6 months children are immune due to maternal antibodies through breastfeeding. Because at the 6 month there is exclusive breastfeeding. That's why other less than 6 month children are immune due to maternal antibody. Immunity again. Immunity also provide lifelong immunity through the once attack that provide the lifelong immunity. Then immunity from maternal antibody through breastfeeding. Then environmental factor, immunity also gained from the vaccination. Then environment factor, season, all season, but more common in winter season, because this is the respiratory route of infection, droplet infection. That's why generally droplet infection diseases are more common in winter season, because there is indoor activity, or the people reside inside the house. That's why it may be present all season, but mainly in the winter season. Predisposing factor, that is low socioeconomic status, that is education is not good, then there is poor occupation is also not good, and it is also associated with overcrowding. Source of infection, cases and carrier. So cases and carrier are the source of infection, and the man is the principal reservoir. So source of infection, it may be cases, it may be carrier. Cases, it may be clinical case, it may be subclinical case. Clinical case may be subclinical case, and if we compare clinical case and subclinical cases are more than clinical case. And if we talk about the ratio of cases in carrier, 5 cases is to 95 carriers. So 5 cases, 95 carriers. So carrier may be 2 types. It may be chronic or it may be acute. Chronic carrier, which in chronic carrier, or we can say chronic host. In chronic carrier, the carrier which shedding the microorganism for over a period of long time in chronic carrier. So that carrier shedding, excreting the microorganism for a long period of time. In cases there are three types of chronic in acute carrier. There are three types of carrier, that is incubator carrier, healthy carrier, and convalescent carrier. That is incubator carrier, healthy carrier, and convalescent carrier. In incubator carrier, that carrier can shedding or excreting the microorganism during the period of incubation period before the appearance of the disease or sign and symptom oneself. So before appearing the clinical feature oneself, that carrier can shedding the microorganism intermittently or continuously. So that is the incubator carrier. During the period of incubation period, that carrier can shedding the microorganism. So that is the incubator carrier. Then healthy carrier. In a healthy carrier, person becomes healthy, but still that carrier can shedding the microorganism. So that is the healthy carrier. Another is convalescent. So during the period of recovery, during the period of convalescence or during the period of recovery, that carrier can shedding the microorganism. So that is called convalescent carrier. So these are the source of infection. It may be chronic, it may be acute. Then infective materials, mainly nasopharyngeal secretion is the main infective material. Nasopharyngeal secretion is the main infective material, but there is also chance from the cutaneous. So discharge from skin lesion as shown in picture. So from cutaneous way or cutaneous lesion or cutaneous mode can be transmitted. So diphtheria can be transmitted through this mode also, and it is also transmitted through the fomite. So fomite generally it may be through thermometer, tongue depressor, an instrument, or linen, handkerchief, pencil. So it can be transmitted. Mainly nasopharyngeal secretion is the infective material, but it may be transmitted from skin lesion, discharge from the skin lesion, and contaminated fomite. So these are the infective materials. Then communicable period. So 2 weeks to 4 weeks, 14 days to 28 days from the onset of the disease. So this is the period of communicable. So communicability, or we can say period of infectivity. So 14 days to 28 days. So this is the period of communicability or infectivity. And mode of transmission, it may be airborne droplet infection. So airborne, because this is the respiratory route of transmission, that's why mode of transmission is airborne. It may be direct contact and sometimes indirect contact through fomite, through a pencil, through tongue depressor, through thermometer. So it can be transmitted. But mainly this is the respiratory route of transmission. That's why it is transmitted through airborne droplet. And incubation period is 2 to 6 days. 2 to 6 days. It is also a short period of time. 2 to 6 days is a incubation period. Okay, move to other slide. There are, we can say 3, or if we include the cutaneous, there are 4 sites. Except cutaneous, there are mainly 3 sites. If we include the cutaneous, but if we include the cutaneous, then it is 4 sites. So first anterior nasal, then pharyngeal and tonsillar. So this is the most common site where that Corynebacterium diphtheria is stick. Generally, it doesn't move. Where it is stick, it can cause edema or necrosis or cause pseudomembrane. So pharyngeal and tonsillar, which is the most common. Then laryngeal also. Then very small percentage cutaneous. So this is the classification of the site infection on the basis of site: anteronasal, pharyngeal and tonsillar, laryngeal and cutaneous. Okay, clinical features. First, pharyngotonsillar diphtheria. Pharynx as well as tonsil. Pharyngotonsillar diphtheria. So what are the clinical features? Obviously, there is sore throat, difficulty in swallowing because there is swelling, as well as there is pseudomembrane, and that also cause difficulty in breathing. Sore throat, difficulty in swallowing, loss of appetite, and fever, slight fever, mild erythema, localized exudate or pseudomembrane. Pseudomembrane is there. Within 2 to 3 days, bluish white or gray membrane form in the throat and on the tonsil. Within 2 to 3 days. So incubation period is 2 to 6 days. So if it is pharyngotonsillar, then within 2 to 3 days, bluish white or gray membrane form in the throat and on the tonsil. And the membrane is stick to the soft palate of the throat and maybe bleed if we try to wipe out. So that membrane is stick in the soft palate. So this is the picture. That membrane or stick into soft palate. If you try to wipe out, then blood may become out from that area. So this is the pharyngotonsillar diphtheria. So adherent dense gray pseudomembrane covering the tonsil. It may be both sides, it may be one side. So that is called pseudomembrane. Okay. Next, laryngotracheal. Larynx as well as trachea. Laryngotracheal diphtheria. So fever, hoarseness, and copy cough. Cough is also present because it is a diphtheria. In Nepal, it is called Bhagotero. So there is cough, copy cough, hoarseness, dyspnea, and obstruction may cause suffocation. Sometimes that pseudomembrane may cause obstruction. If there is obstruction, then there may be suffocation. So that is the laryngotracheal diphtheria. And another is nasal diphtheria, localized to septum and turbinate of one side of the nose. So that the septum of nose is localizes to septum and turbinate of one side of the nose generally. So there is a stick of that membrane into one side of the nose. So localizes to septum and turbinate of one side of the nose. Occasionally a membrane may be extend to the pharynx. So from nose to pharynx, that membrane may extend into from nose to pharynx. So that is the nasal diphtheria, which accounts only 2%. Mainly pharyngotonsillar is the most common. Thereafter cutaneous, so skin lesion or wound is there. So often appears as a secondary infection of the previous skin abrasion or infection. So there may be secondary infection of the skin abrasion or infection. Presenting lesion often and also may be surrounded by the erythema or covered with the membrane. So as shown in picture in previous slide, there was cutaneous diphtheria, and which accounts 2% also, very small percentage. But from cutaneous way or from cutaneous lesion, it can be transmitted. So that is possible. Okay, these are the clinical manifestation on the basis of site. That is a pharyngotonsillar diphtheria, then laryngotracheal diphtheria, nasal diphtheria, cutaneous diphtheria. Okay, complication. So due to pseudomembrane, there is obstruction of respiratory tract by the pseudomembrane, and that exotoxin mix in blood stream or present in blood then goes to myocardium, and that exotoxin also causes myocarditis, even polyneuritis, and the mortality ranges from 10 to 30% sometime. Mortality may be 10 to 30% sometime, but generally 5 to 10%, usually due to cardiac damage. If there is cardiac damage, then mortality will be high as 30%, but generally 10%. And there are rare complications such as renal failure, encephalitis, cerebral infarction, pulmonary embolism. So they are the rare complication, but generally that may cause obstruction, myocarditis, polyneuritis. So these are the main complication, common complication. And if there is cardiac damage, then mortality will be high, even 30%, range from 10 to 30%, but generally 10%. Okay, prevention and control. Prevention and control for cases in carrier. For cases in carrier, so I have mentioned it may be clinical case, it may be subclinical case. In carrier, it may be acute, it may be chronic. For cases in carrier, prevention and control measure are early detection of the case, so it will not be transmitted to other. If it is identified in early, then it can be treated early, then that individual or that case will be non-infectious to other. And isolation is the other best measure. That case should be isolated, then there is no mix of the other individual or other children, then treatment. So for cases, so this is for cases. So diphtheria antidoxin can be given. It ranges from 20,000 to 1 lakh unit IM or IV depending on the severity. So if it is a mild, then 20 to 40,000 unit diphtheria antitoxin is given if it is mild. If it is moderate, then 40,000 to 60,000 IU diphtheria antitoxin can be given. If it is severe, then 80,000 to 1 lakh unit can be given. So this is for case diphtheria antitoxin, and there is other best antibiotic because this is bacterial infection. That's why antibiotic is also there. Penicillin is also good. First penicillin, some book refer erythromycin also. Penicillin and erythromycin. Penicillin and erythromycin is the base drug which is given for 5 to 7 days, or it can be given up to 10 days. So generally penicillin is not used nowadays. So erythromycin can be given only erythromycin can be given because penicillin, benzyl penicillin, procaine penicillin generally not used. So erythromycin can be given. So this is for cases in a carrier. Therefore, about 2 days after starting antibiotic treatment, patient are no longer infectious. So after starting of the antibiotic, that case is rendered to be non-infectious about 2 days, and isolate to avoid the exposing other to the disease. So isolation is also important. Generally, isolation is good for respiratory route of infection. All the diseases which is transmitted from respiratory route of infection or respiratory route of transmission. So it is good for measles, whooping cough, diphtheria, and other diseases, especially for respiratory route of transmission. So isolation is also good. So there is avoidance of the exposing other. For confirmation of the diagnosis, health workers should obtain the throat culture from the suspected cases. So throat culture is taken for confirmation of the diagnosis. Then this is for carrier. Erythromycin for 10 days. For cases, diphtheria antitoxin and erythromycin, and for carrier, erythromycin for 10 days. That is for cases and carrier. And for contact, the person who are exposed to the case, for contact, no action taken if there is immunization before 2 years. We will discuss also routine immunization. So there is contact, there is exposure with cases, but immunization taken within the previous 2 years. So nothing is done, no action is taken. Then only booster dose is given, immunization taken before 2 years. Penicillin or erythromycin can be given who are not immunized for prophylactic, for contact. Generally, erythromycin can be given who are not immunized or who is deprived from the vaccination, pentavalent vaccine. And for community, especially for less than 1 year children, pentavalent vaccine is given. That is DPT, hepatitis B, and Haemophilus influenza B. DPT, diphtheria, pertussis, tetanus, Hep B, that is Haemophilus influenza B, and hepatitis B. So this is the pentavalent vaccine because there are 5 antigens. That's why it is called pentavalent vaccine, which is given IM at 6 weeks, 10 weeks, and 14 weeks. So 28 days apart or 1 month apart. So this vaccine can be given, and approximately every 10 years booster dose can be given. But under National Immunization Program of Nepal, there is no provision of the booster dose now. It is not included in the National Immunization Program. Later it will be included, but now it is not included. There is only pentavalent vaccine is there, which is given IM 0.5 ml at 6 weeks, 10 weeks, and 14 weeks. So this is the routine immunization, and there is another vaccine that is called DT. So this is pentavalent vaccine for less than 1 year, especially for 6 weeks, 10 weeks. Another vaccine is DT, diphtheria and tetanus. Diphtheria and tetanus, which is given for pregnant women. Previously, only tetanus toxoid vaccine is given for pregnant women, but now diphtheria is also given because due to diphtheria, there may be congenital abnormalities or that may cause abortion, stillbirth. That's why diphtheria is also given for pregnant women. So DT, or we can say TD, tetanus and diphtheria. TD is given for pregnant women. So it is given after completing first trimester of the pregnancy. First trimester of the pregnancy, there are three trimester. So first trimester consists of 3 months, second trimester consists of another 3 months, then third trimester consists of another 3 months. So first 3 months, that is first trimester. So it is completing 3 months of the pregnancy. When it goes to 4 months, so it is given. So after completing first trimester pregnancy, it is given first dose, then second dose is given after 1 month. So that is the TT vaccine. So two doses are given. So first, after completing first trimester of the pregnancy, then second dose is given after 1 month. If that is the subsequent pregnancy, or she has already completed 2 doses of TT, then for next pregnancy, she will take only 1 TT vaccine after completing first trimester. So second dose is not needed for second pregnancy of subsequent pregnancy. If she has already taken 2, then next 1 booster dose of TT can be given at the next pregnancy after completing first trimester. Clear, sir? If there is any confusion, so for community, there is pentavalent vaccine, then TD. I have not mentioned TD here, but you can mention TD for pregnant women. Okay. Next, move to other disease, that is mumps. Mumps, it is called in Nepali. It is called hare. Okay, mumps. So it is caused by virus. It is a RNA virus of the myxovirus family called infectious parotitis, and clinically recognized by non-suppurative. Non-suppurative, that is non-pause formation. There is non-suppurative enlargement and tenderness of one or both parotid gland. So parotid gland, so this is the parotid gland. So there is enlargement of parotid gland. Okay. So clinically recognized by non-suppurative enlargement and tenderness of one or both parotid gland, and mostly the mild childhood disease. Again, it affects the children age from 5 to 9 years. If you take the little bit long age, or if you take the other range, then that is 5 to 15 years. It mainly affects the 5 to 15 years of age group. If you take the short range of age, then it affects the 5 to 9 years. And it can also affect adult, and if it attacks the adult, then it will be severe than children. So it will be severe in form. But there is no age bar. It can affect all the age group, but mainly it affects the 5 to 9 years. If it is in adult, it will present as a severe form. So epidemiological determinants. So first, agent. So it is a Myxovirus family. Myxovirus parotiditis is the agent. So family is Myxovirus. It is RNA virus, and the agent is Myxovirus parotiditis. That is the agent. And source of infection, it may be clinical and subclinical cases. Clinical and subclinical cases. So clinical cases accounts around 30%. Sorry, subclinical cases accounts 30 to 40%. So subclinical infection is also there, which accounts 30 to 40% of the cases. Subclinical infection or subclinical cases, 30 to 40%. And the virus is also found in blood, urine, CSF, human milk. And period of communicability, so 4 to 6 days before onset of symptom and week or more thereafter. And it is easy to remember, 6 days before and after onset of the symptom. It is easy to remember. Or 4 to 6 days before onset of the symptom and week or more thereafter. Or it is easy to remember, 6 days before and after onset of the symptoms. 6 days before and after onset of the symptom, that is the period of communicability, almost around a week. So that is the period of communicability. Host, it mainly affects the 5 to 15 years of age group, but if you take the shorter range, then it affects mainly 5 to 9 years. And immunity, once attacked, lifelong immunity. Once attacked, it confers lifelong immunity, and for certain period of time, that immunity also obtained from the maternal antibody. So it generally doesn't present less than 6 months again. Okay, environment. Again, it is associated with overcrowding, and there is peak incidence in winter and spring, especially in winter, because there is indoor activity and the family reside inside the house. And mode of transmission, this is the respiratory route of transmission. That's why droplet infection. And sneezing or coughing by infected person or direct contact with the infected person. So this is a droplet infection, because there is that RNA virus or the virus, Myxovirus parotiditis, present in the saliva. That's why it spreads through the droplet infection. Incubation period is 2 to 3 weeks, usually 18 days. In diphtheria, 2 to 6 days, very short incubation period, but in case of mumps, 2 to 3 weeks. 2 to 3 weeks incubation period, and the period of communicability 6 days before and 6 days after onset of the. Okay, we discussed the epidemiological determinants. Agent, host, environment. Agent, Myxovirus parotiditis. Source of infection, clinical case or subclinical cases. Subclinical cases accounts 30 to 40%. Clinical case, that is the frank case where the Shannon syndrome is present and the virus is also found in blood, urine, CSF, human milk, and period of communicability 6 days before and 6 days after onset of the symptom. Host mainly affects the 5 to 9 years of age group. Immunity, once attack confers lifelong immunity. In environmental factor, it is more common in winter season mainly, and the mode of transmission is droplet infection, and the incubation period is 2 to 3 weeks, generally 18 days. And this is mumps pathogenesis. Okay, mumps pathogenesis. Respiratory transmission of virus replicates first in nasopharynx and vaginal lymph nodes. So there is replication of virus mainly in nasopharynx and vaginal lymph nodes. Then viremia and viremia 12 to 25 days after exposure with split to tissue. So after 12 to 25 days after exposure, there is split in the tissue. So that is viremia, and multiple tissue infected during the viremia. So and thereafter it affects the parotid gland. Okay, sinus syndrome. So about a third of infection infected with mumps virus have no symptom, because that is in form of subclinical infection. So that may be in form of subclinical infection. About 1/3 of children infected with the mumps virus have no symptoms, so they are subclinical infection, and that subclinical infection excrete the microorganism without presenting sign and symptom. They can spread, they can share the microorganism and can cause the disease. So that can transmit the disease. And the most prominent symptoms are pain and swelling in either one or both parotid glands. Sometimes generally one, but sometimes maybe both. It affects the both parotid gland, and but may also sublingual and submandibular gland. So there is pain. So that is the most prominent symptom: pain and swelling in either one or both parotid glands. So that is the major symptoms. And other symptom: pain when opening the mouth, chewing, or difficult in swallowing. Pain in, so it is difficult to open the mouth. Chewing, so during chewing there is pain. Then or during swallowing there is pain. And fever, generally mild fever, headache, weakness, and tenderness, earache. Earache is also there. So these are the clinical manifestations, signs and symptoms. And complication of mumps is rare, but they can be serious, such as that can cause orchitis, so inflammation of testes. It may be one or both testicles. Ophthritis, inflammation of ovary, which accounts 5%. Pancreatitis, meningitis, encephalitis, but very rare, very small percentage. Then thyroiditis, neuritis, hepatitis, myocarditis, and that can cause spontaneous abortion if there is mumps for pregnant lady, especially within first trimester of the pregnancy. If there is mumps in pregnant woman, then that can cause spontaneous abortion. Generally, it doesn't cause for adult, but there is no age bar if it is for pregnant woman. If the pregnant woman is suffering from the mumps at the first trimester of pregnancy, so around 25% may be spontaneous abortion. So they are the complication of the mumps. And there is mumps surveillance, clinical mumps on the basis of sign and symptom. So acute onset of unilateral or bilateral tender. It may be one, it may be two. Self-limited swelling of parotid or other salivary gland lasting 2 or more days and without other apparent cause. There is no other cause, but there is unilateral, one parotid gland or both parotid gland is tender, self-limited swelling, then which lasts for 2 or more days. So that is the clinical mumps on the basis of clinical features. Then next is laboratory confirmed mumps. So patient with clinical mumps on laboratory confirmation. So presenting above clinical manifestation with laboratory confirmation. And epidemiological confirmed mumps, so there is epidemiologically linked. So there is on the basis of clinical as well as epidemiological linked. So there may be the other cases. It may be other cases at home or other cases in the community. So it is linked with epidemiological link. So that is called epidemiologically confirmed MUMS. So it is based upon epidemiology as well as clinical MUMS. Clinical features is also there. So it may be it affects unilateral or bilateral tender, but it is epidemiologically linked. So that is called epidemiological clinical confirmed MUMS. So clinical MUMS, laboratory confirmed MUMS, and epidemiologically confirmed MUMS. So generally there is no treatment because it is caused by virus. So if there is MUMS, there is symptomatic treatment only. If there is pain, then we can take analgesic, antibiotic. If there is fever, we can take antibiotic. Paracetamol is good, and it will be subside later. And once attacked, it provides the lifelong immunity. And there is vaccine for prevention from the MUMS, that is MMR. Generally in National Immunization Program, NIP, MR is there, that is measles and rubella. That is not for MUMS, but MUMS can be given, but that is not in the National Immunization Program. MMR, MUMS, measles and rubella vaccine can be given. So MUMS vaccine alone, that is a separate vaccine, MUMS vaccine. There is combination vaccine, MMR. There is separate vaccine, MUMS vaccine. So combination, this is the live vaccine. Efficacy is 80%, and dose of immunity is lifelong and schedule at least one dose. And it can be administered with measles and rubella is MMR, or with measles, rubella and varicella, or MMRV. But this schedule is not under National Immunization Program for Nepal. So under MMR, it can be given at 9 months and 15 months. SC, subcutaneous, can be given at 9 months, then 15 months. Subcutaneous 0.5 ml can be given. Adverse reaction. So MMR can cause fever, rash, joint symptoms, thrombocytopenia, less than 1 in 40,000 doses. Parotitis, deafness, which is rare, and encephalopathy, less than 1 in 10 lakh. Okay, pertussis will cover in next class. So that's all for today. Thank you. We'll cover in next class.